Tim Elko and Andrew Vaughn. This is the story for the White Sox this weekend. Elko gets called up minutes before Friday's game starts. Vaughn hits two homers. He has a big RBI to start the scoring for the White Sox on Sunday. So the White Sox finally get some offensive production out of Andrew Vaughn. You wrote about how it could possibly work having both Tim Elko and Andrew Vaughn on the roster together and getting a chance to speak to Will Venable and get some of his insight on the decision making that he's going to have in upcoming games with both of them on the 26-man roster. James speculating, how do you think this is going to work moving forward for the White Sox with Elko and Vaughn?
It works for now. Like effectively, like the kind of breakdown we had the playing time on Saturday was like Nick Maytown was leading the team in like appearances at DH, and that is like overtly who Tim
Really?
Elko replaced. Um,
Wow.
so that other than the fact that they selected Nick Maytown's contract a second time, had him on the roster for 3 days, and then DFA'd him for a guy who's been looking like his replacement for a bit longer than that. Other than the silliness of that, it's kind of a seamless transition because now you're kind of giving DH playing time to probably someone who's a lot beyond like how much fan excitement he clearly anticipated. He got very big cheers like throughout the week. Like people were very aware of him. Like it definitely stretched beyond like the online fandom that I have to like acknowledge. Um, but it's kind of a seamless transition for the roster currently is long term. And certainly if things are like good at any point, there's a crunch that kind of comes. Like taking away the DH spot from being able to use it to Benintendi is a bit of a crunch for him. If you actually had a healthy Tauchman, which he's literally on a rehab assignment there, you're theoretically getting somewhat close to that. That's like another person who regularly you probably want to play just about every day, or especially against every right-handed starter. And um, whether that's mostly him in right field or you're a little easy of him with that because he's now pulled his hamstring twice, squeezing him out of the DH is maybe something you're a little hesitant to do. Luis Robert now battling a sore knee on top of just the general caution towards him, taking away the DH option for him, a little bit of squeeze. And now you have Josh Rojas back, and you still want to play Miguel Vargas pretty regularly and Chase Mydroth pretty regularly. Not having the DH open or first base open for those guys probably squeezes it out for Lenyn Sosa pretty quickly. You could say that Lenyn hasn't really, other than the fact that he actually leads the team in hits, probably hasn't played quite well enough to really maybe make the strongest case for why he shouldn't be squeezed out of the regular rotation. But kind of this optimal world where everyone's healthy and there's like a bunch of candidates for DH at bats, not really something that stays around for long. And I don't think the White Sox are in a position offensively with their production where there's really people to squeeze Elko's at bats out. On top of the fact that you can make an argument, and especially if he starts hitting a lot or hits more crucial 3-run homers, none of these people deserve opportunities over Elko in the first place, and that's the reason he should win out. So now that there's this window for him to put his foot in the door, which I think where the roster's at really allows for, he can obviously kind of take it and run with it and make it where any kind of replacing him is an anathema, and that's kind of as much as I think there is a strain of fan that would just want him immediately have been called up like 3 weeks ago and put in the number 3 slot and ride or die with him from here on out. I think that's all you're asking for is give him a window to kind of show that he deserves at bats with his play, and it seems like they're set up to do that at least for the next week or so, and hopefully that goes well.
Yeah, Jim, you mentioned that Walker McKibben, who had to step up and manage the rest of the game after Will Venable was thrown out arguing balls and strikes on Sunday, the first career ejection for Will Venable as a manager. That Lenyn Sosa was a defensive closer at first base. So, to James's
Hmm.
point, in the next 10 days, let's say next 7 to 10 days for Tim Elko, if he's in the lineup and he's hitting, even if Andrew Vaughn is hitting, do we have to focus more on how Elko is playing defense? Because with the bigger body and the bigger target, if Elko is able to make more plays because of just body size and a little bit more range than Andrew Vaughn, is it then Vaughn that is at risk here of losing DH at bats because he's just not the same quality of first baseman defensively that maybe someone like Elko or even Lenyn Sosa is?
I think right now maybe the pressure. is on like the Joshua Palacios part of the roster in terms of like right field if Talkman comes
Sure.
back. And like that's you have I'm looking at the plate appearance leaders, and this is a problem I ran into in doing a month in the box and trying to judge bench players. Like there aren't really any bench players. There are guys getting starter uh quantity plate appearances, and then there are guys who are being filtered through pretty quickly. And there really is no 40 to 50 plate appearance guy in a month. Like Nick Maton was in the top nine. Like look at the plate appearances now. Michael A. Taylor is seventh. Joshua Palacios is ninth. And those are like top nine guys getting plate appearances right now. So I think as the White Sox are trying to, winnow it down, and Togman might be the first back. Maybe Michael A. Taylor is the guy who slides into that fourth outfielder role, kind of spells everybody, and Palacios is the guy that moves. And so there really isn't that absence felt at first base. But I did think, two things I thought were interesting. One, as James said, like the Elko reception, surprisingly large for somebody who isn't like an Edgar Caro brand, or even like Colson Montgomery before this year, like grade prospect. Like he was getting a reception that I thought, Montgomery might get if he were called up. Maybe Braden Montgomery trumps everybody right now at this point when it comes to like kind of genuine fan enthusiasm. But, given Elko's profile, older, AAA, well, maybe he's not a AAA master because he hasn't been there for that long. He said as well as long as he's been in AAA, but just, there isn't a whole lot of excitement he provides outside of the bats, and he strikes out a lot. So are you going to get that? But I part of me wonder if that was like Vaughn fatigue of just, all right, here's somebody to kind of press the status quo a little bit, and maybe he doesn't immediately rid the White Sox of the Medelson Andrew Vaughn problem, but at least there's somebody who can press him for playing time on both sides of the ball if Vaughn continues not getting it done. And Vaughn has responded, whether it's the pressure or whether it's just the regression, whether warming up, what have you, he's hitting. But I think, there are signs of the White Sox faith. Either you could say it's the faith um, declining or the matter of just that he gets more expensive next year. The Andrew Vaughn era, if there ever was one, is closing because of circumstances, many circumstances, performance, salary, age, options, etc. That the White Sox I think are right to explore what things look like beyond him. And I think looking at first basemen who are bigger targets or bigger catch radiuses or radii, or just have more athleticism at the position, are one way you can help evaluate your infield defense as you go along. And like, how many errors or misplays are from uh, not having that extra reach, or because the throw got there late, or because uh, the range from the first baseman's step and dive is a lot larger with Elko there versus Vaughn. Like I think having a normal traditional size first baseman, is a way to uh, evaluate all four infield positions. So that's why I think it's interesting that, you see Sosa in there as the late game replacement, which, I've advocated for jokingly and then seriously because uh, he started hitting in September and I just want to see his bat more. But if Elko is in a position to where like he's fine offensively, like I would say fine being like a 90 weighted runs created plus, like not
Okay.
average, not quite average because of the strikeouts, and he doesn't, not maybe not an on base fiend, but he hits for enough slugging to where you can ignore him for a few weeks and then evaluate the issue later, as you build up the sample size. If he's doing that, then I think makes it a lot easier to kind of make Vaughn the odd man out should there ever be enough bodies in the corner spots to where like somebody loses a job. Right now, every time it seems like a tough decision has to be made, Jacob Amaya strikes somebody down, and somebody else can play another day.